He was the most powerful man on earth, a living god to millions. He had crushed rivals, tamed chaos, and built an empire that stretched from the Atlantic to the deserts of Arabia. But one night, all of that power meant nothing. He didn't eat. He didn't sleep. He wandered the halls of his palace like a ghost, whispering the same words over and over. Quinctilius Varus, give me back my legions. This wasn't just grief. It was despair, the kind that cracks empires from the inside. Because something had happened in the dark forests of Germania, something so brutal, so humiliating that it broke the unbreakable man. Augustus Caesar. Rome had become unstoppable. The civil wars were over. Augustus, the adopted son of Julius Caesar, had defeated Mark Antony, outplayed Cleopatra, and transformed a bleeding republic into a thriving empire. The Senate called him Princeps, the first citizen. The people called him Augustus, the exalted one. But behind the titles, he was the master of everything. Under his rule, Rome didn't just grow, it stabilized. He brought Pax Romana, the Roman peace. The legions crushed rebellions, built roads, and expanded Rome's reach across 3 continents. There was only one region left to tame, Germania, wild, unpredictable, full of tribal alliances and endless forests. But Augustus believed it was just another land waiting for Roman order, so he sent a man he trusted, a governor, a soldier, a politician, named Publius Quinctilius Varus, and that decision would haunt him forever. To Augustus, Varus was loyal, efficient, Roman to the bone. But in reality, he was blind, too confident, and fatally trusting. In Germania, Varus met a charismatic young noble named Arminius. Arminius had been raised the Roman way. He spoke Latin, wore the armor, served in the Roman cavalry. To Varus, he was the perfect local ally, a bridge between Rome and the tribes. But Arminius had other plans. He hadn't forgotten where he came from. He hadn't forgotten the slaughter of his people, and now, as a Roman officer with insider knowledge, he had the perfect cover. He spent months earning Varus's trust. He dined with him, rode beside him, advised him on Germanic politics. And all the while, he was quietly uniting the tribes, preparing the trap. In the year 9 AD, Varus received word of a tribal uprising to the north. Without hesitation, he marched his troops, 3 legions strong, into the Teutoburg Forest. No scouts ahead, no reinforcements behind, just blind faith in Arminius, who said he'd meet them along the way. The forest swallowed them, narrow trails, endless trees, rain that turned the ground to sludge. The legions stretched thin, vulnerable, disoriented. And then, the betrayal. Arminius disappeared. The trees came, alive, with spears. Germanic warriors surged from the woods, screaming. They weren't trying to defeat the Romans. They were trying to erase them. For 3 straight days, the legions were ambushed, harassed, and massacred. There was no front line, no escape route, only mud, blood, and screaming. Varus, seeing the hopelessness, took his own life. The few who survived were hunted down, crucified, or enslaved. And the eagles, the sacred standards of the legions, were captured and desecrated. Rome didn't just lose a battle, it lost everything it thought it controlled in Germania. Weeks passed, then months. No word from Varus, no reports, no tribute, no survivors, just silence. When the truth finally reached Augustus, it shattered him. He didn't hold court. He didn't speak publicly. He didn't strategize or command. Instead, he locked himself inside his palace and began to spiral. Contemporary sources describe him as pacing endlessly, muttering the same phrase, Quinctilius Varus. Give me back my legions. He tore his clothes. He smashed his head against walls. This wasn't a public tragedy. It was a personal one, because Augustus had built Rome on the illusion of invincibility. And now that illusion had been ripped apart. He had trusted Varus. He had believed Germania was tamed. He had believed the empire was safe. He was wrong. The loss at Teutoburg wasn't just a military disaster. It was a cultural trauma. 3 full legions gone. Over 15,000 soldiers wiped out. The sacred eagles captured, symbols that were never supposed to fall into enemy hands. Augustus responded. With fury, he ordered mass sacrifices to the gods, trying to cleanse Rome of the shame. He refused to raise new legions with the lost numbers. 17, 18, and 19 were never used again. Their memory was too cursed. The humiliation lingered. Future emperors became obsessed with vengeance. Tiberius sent campaigns to recover the lost eagles. Germanicus, Augustus's great-nephew, led massive raids into Germania, burning villages and digging up bones. But none of it brought back the dead, and none of it erased the stain. Years later, Germanicus did recover 2 of the lost eagles. Rome celebrated, statues were raised, stories were told of victory, but Augustus didn't live to see it. And even if he had, it wouldn't have mattered, because for Augustus, the loss wasn't just about soldiers or banners. It was about betrayal. He had trusted Varus. He had believed Arminius was loyal. He had believed that Rome, his Rome, was unbreakable. And all of that was a lie. Arminius would later die, betrayed by his own people. Varus's name would become synonymous with failure. And Augustus? He would spend the last years of his life haunted by a forest he never saw. The forest where his dream cracked. Historians still debate how much the loss truly affected the empire. Militarily, Rome would recover. Strategically, they simply pulled back across the Rhine and held the line. But psychologically, the Teutoburg disaster changed everything. Rome stopped trying to conquer Germania. The line was drawn, an invisible scar across the empire's northern frontier. And as for Augustus, this was the moment his godlike image shattered. Not in public, not in the Senate, but in the quiet halls of his palace. Because this wasn't just a defeat. It was a mirror, showing him that even gods can bleed, even emperors can be fooled, even legions can vanish like ghosts. History remembers Augustus as the founder of the Roman Empire, the man who brought peace, the master of propaganda and politics, the builder of cities, roads, armies. But hidden beneath the statues and titles is a man who, in his final years, was haunted by one moment he couldn't control, one wound that never healed, one name that echoed in his nightmares. Varus. Give me back my legions. Not a demand, not a command, but a whisper from a man who realized even emperors can break.